Hi there, my name is Ben. Mostly what I read is science fiction and fantasy, but I do read a couple of non-fiction books from time to time, and so that's what I'm reviewing today. I'm reviewing Reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafisi. So reading Lolita in Tehran was utterly disappointing. I picked it up from the Costco bargain books thinking that I might be able to get a memoir on somebody who'd lived through the religious extremist revolution that happened in 1979, because Iran used to be a secular country, or more so secular country I should say. It's still not a Western country, never has been. But reading Lolita in Tehran kind of sets like the title and the description, the summary, pretty much, you know, kind of would suggest that you're gonna get somebody who were seeking kind of a larger perspective. You know, it wasn't necessarily about reading just necessarily Western books during this revolutionary time, but rather, you know, them trying to get like the big picture and being open to the large picture. And so, and it's also would be kind of interesting to read about somebody who, you know, had the insight about what was going on and what they had to do to basically, you know, make sure that they didn't get captured by the morality police and, you know, survive. And this book doesn't really give this, because it's not really a memoir so much as a metaphor. And that's kind of what people have, you know, from what I've heard, you know, that people really like about this book is that it's a metaphor of people kind of losing their freedom and its connection with Western literature, like, you know, The Great Gatsby, or, you know, F. Scott Fitzgerald and Vladimir Nabokov books, you know, Lolita being one. And really she just spends most of her books kind of setting up a character study of these different women that she was going to read the books with, to kind of like do her class, because she was an English professor in the University of Tehran, and she taught Western literature, and her desire was to teach. And when they took that away from her because it was considered, you know, unmoral, she kind of formulated this class together. So she sets up the book as far as like what the students were talking about her, and how like the revolution was coming in, and different students were kind of taking positions of, okay, are the restrictions that they have, like with us donning the veil and us not being able to read Western literature and not be doing some of these secular things, are they okay? And she set it up for like different students choosing different sides, and her forming kind of like this underground little book club where they could read Western literature, so that she could kind of do a study, a character study, on how like this little group changed the women's lives and changed her lives. Now, this would be great if it had worked, but it really doesn't, because what I realized about halfway through the book is that she kept on saying things about her students and the women around her, how they would say something insightful that struck her, something profound about something that was going on in this time of like restrictions of civil liberties. And you would see her not quite understanding what her students were saying to her in the classes, saying, you know, you should be careful about what you're saying, or, you know, this is my position as far as politically and as far as social ethics. And she's writing from a view of hindsight, and that's the only insight she has. And as you read and you read, and you realize that the reason her students keep on saying things that are insightful to her is because she lacks any kind of insight. You're not going to get a memoir about living through the religious revolution, because all she is able to present is metaphors, connections and comparisons with pieces of fiction. And it drove me nuts. I kept on wanting to like abandon her as an author and take one of her students and say, okay, she wasn't really telling me anything about what was going on. How about you just try to talk to me about your particular life? I want a memoir. I didn't really care that, you know, she wasn't necessarily in the thick of things all the time, but there was no need to just rely totally on fiction and literary comparisons when you were living in the revolution. And so about halfway through this book, I realized that the insight that I wanted, I wasn't going to get from her. And the author was not going to be able to present me with a memoir of forming an underground book club. And she wasn't going to be able to do the character studies of how this Western literature was changing people's lives because she failed to understand her students in her classroom when they were saying, this is my social ethic position, this is why I'm for the revolution, or this is why I'm having a problem between my family members and my culture because I'm on the fence, you know. She didn't even understand her own students, so how was she going to do a character study about these women in the book club, you know? So, yeah, I didn't like that book and didn't finish it because the author herself was annoying.